I walked out of a 14-hour ER shift still wearing someone else's blood on my shoes and opened my banking app in the parking lot. Dad's surgery fund. $42,860. Gone. Drained to zero. When I confronted my sister Marin, she didn't deny it. She leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, and actually laughed. My healing retreat in Sedona is non-refundable, she said. Dad's old. I'm not. That's the moment something inside me didn't break. It hardened. Stick with me. Because that was the night I stopped being the responsible daughter and started paying attention. My name is Alara Whitmore. I'm 29. I work as an ER nurse in Ohio. Long shifts, short breaks, and the kind of exhaustion that sits deep in your bones. For months, I had been picking up overtime. Double shifts. Holidays. Nights. I told everyone I was saving for future plans. The truth? I was saving my father's life. Dad, Grant Whitmore, needs triple bypass surgery. He's stubborn and proud. After Mom died, he raised me and Marin alone. He worked hard, never complained, always made sure we had enough. Now it was my turn. Marin, my older sister, is 32. She calls herself a spiritual wellness consultant. She doesn't have a real job. She lives at home. She talks about energy, balance, and abundance, but somehow never about rent or bills. The emergency account was supposed to be for medical crises only. Dad trusted both of us on it. I trusted her too. When I asked how she could do this, she shrugged. You're emotionally repressed, Alara. I'm working on myself. That retreat will help me heal childhood trauma. By emptying Dad's surgery fund? I asked. He'll survive. You always fix things anyway. That part hurt more than the money. Because she was right. I always fix things. Dad doesn't know yet. He still thinks the surgery fund is safe. He still believes Marin can do no real harm. I could scream. I could tell him everything. But I don't. Instead, I breathe. I look at my sister, smiling like she's done nothing wrong. And I decide something quietly. I won't explode. I'll wait. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my father. He was reading the newspaper, glasses low on his nose, acting like everything was normal. My chest felt tight, but I kept my voice calm. Dad, I said softly, did you move any money from the emergency account? He looked up, confused. No. Why? I swallowed. It's empty. He frowned, but not in shock. More like mild confusion. That can't be right. Marin wouldn't touch that. She knows what it's for. I held his eyes. She used it for a retreat. He leaned back in his chair and shook his head. No. Marin's just sensitive. You know how she is. She wouldn't do something like that on purpose. On purpose. The words echoed in my head. That's when I realized something painful. This wasn't new. This was our whole childhood. When Marin cried, Dad rushed to comfort her. When I brought home straight A's, Dad smiled and said, I'm proud of you. Keep it up. When Marin forgot homework, I helped her finish it. When Marin crashed the car, I drove Dad to work for months. When Marin quit another job, I covered her part of the bills. She got comfort. I got responsibility. She made mistakes. I cleaned them up. Dad always protected her. He said she was sensitive. He said she felt things deeply. Maybe that was true. But right now, his heart was weak. His surgery was scheduled. And the money was gone. His life was not a small mistake. I looked at him sitting there, tired and thinner than last year. The surgery deposit was due in 3 days. I'll handle it, I said quietly. He nodded, relieved, like he always was when I said those words. That afternoon, I transferred the last of my savings to the hospital. Every dollar I had left. My emergency cushion. My safety net. Gone. I didn't tell Dad how much it hurt. I didn't tell him I had almost nothing left in my account. I stopped arguing with him about Marin. There was no point. He wasn't ready to see it. Instead, I went back to my room, opened my laptop, and printed the bank statements. Every withdrawal. Every transfer. Every date and time. If I was going to fix this again, I was going to do it differently. This time, I wasn't just cleaning up the mess. I was keeping records. A week after the money disappeared, Marin started acting like she had just won the lottery. Bright pink brochures showed up at coffee shops, grocery stores, even the hospital break room. At the top, in gold letters, it said, Healing Through Release, a Transformational Workshop. Her name was printed under it. Marin Whitmore, Spiritual Wellness Consultant. I drove past a small studio downtown and saw her inside through the window. Fresh paint. Soft white curtains. Expensive candles lined up on shelves. There was a brand new velvet couch and a glass desk that probably cost more than my car payment. That's where Dad's surgery money went. Rebranding. A rented studio. Luxury furniture. She told everyone she was finally stepping into abundance. She said the universe rewards courage. I stood outside that studio one evening after my shift and watched people walk in. They looked hopeful. They had no idea what funded that soft lighting and those scented candles. Later that night, I came home early and heard her in the living room with a friend. "Ilara's such a martyr," Marin said, laughing. "She loves playing the hero. Dad would have survived anyway. She acts like she's the only one holding this family together. Dad would have survived anyway." That sentence didn't hurt. It froze me, because it told me something clear. She didn't regret it. She didn't feel guilty. She believed she deserved it. I went back to my room and opened my laptop again. I pulled every bank statement from the last 3 months. I studied each line slowly. Withdrawals, transfers, payments to a retreat center in Arizona, studio rental deposit, furniture purchases. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A loan, a small personal loan, taken out 2 weeks ago, in my father's name. My hand started shaking. The signature on the digital copy looked like his, but it wasn't. I've seen Dad sign papers my whole life. The letters were too smooth, too careful. Marin hadn't just drained the fund. She borrowed more money using his identity. Without telling him. Without asking. Forgery. I stared at the document for a long time. My chest felt tight, but my mind was suddenly very clear. This wasn't just selfish. It wasn't just betrayal. It was illegal. And for the first time, I understood something. This wasn't a mistake I could quietly fix. This was a line she chose to cross that I didn't say a word to Marin. Not yet. Instead, I spent the next few days quietly collecting every piece of evidence I could find. I printed the loan documents and compared Dad's signature to the one on the personal loan. I screenshot text messages between Marin and the bank and pulled the full withdrawal history from our joint account. Every detail mattered. Every number, every date, every small transfer told the truth that Marin was trying to hide. Late one evening, after my shift, I met with Callan Rourke. He's a lawyer, but more than that, he's a friend from the ER. He knows how I think and trusts me to be careful. I spread all the papers across his office desk, trying not to let my hands shake. He looked at the documents, flipping pages slowly. His face stayed calm, but I could see the gravity in his eyes. "Ilara, this is serious," he said finally. "This isn't just misuse of money. This is identity fraud. Felony level." I swallowed hard. "So, if I report it, she could go to jail?" My voice was quiet, steady, but my chest felt heavy. He leaned back. "Yes, but there's another side. If you don't report it, your father's house could be at risk. They can foreclose on it. Or the bank could sue him for the money she borrowed." I felt my stomach drop. I had been thinking emotionally until now. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream at Marin. But this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It wasn't about money she stole or the way she laughed when she said Dad would survive. It was survival. My father's life, his home, everything we worked for, it was on the line. Callan looked at me, waiting. I nodded slowly. "Then we do this right. Carefully. Document everything. Make sure we have proof." And then, I hesitated. "Then we stop her." He smiled faintly, a little approvingly. "Exactly. You don't act out of anger. You act with evidence. Strategically. This isn't personal. It's about protecting your father." I left his office that night with a folder full of copies and my mind racing. Marin thought she had the upper hand. She thought she could spend, lie, and manipulate without consequences. She was wrong. This time, I wasn't just fixing things. I was preparing, planning, watching. And when the time came, she wouldn't see it coming. It was no longer about emotion. It was about survival. And I would protect my father at any cost. The morning of Dad's surgery, I sat alone in the hospital waiting room, clutching my hands together so hard they ached. His surgery was scheduled for 3 hours, but every minute felt like an eternity. The smell of antiseptic and the quiet hum of monitors made my chest tighten. I checked my phone. No message from Marin. Not a single good luck or I'll be there. I knew she wouldn't come. And then it arrived, a text from her, casual, almost mocking. "Energy in hospitals is toxic for my aura. I'm sending love from home." I stared at it, numb. She could have at least pretended to care. Dad was in surgery, and she was worrying about her aura. Trying to distract myself, I scrolled through my banking app. That's when I noticed a new notification. A payment had been missed. My stomach dropped. Marin had missed her first loan payment, the one she took out in Dad's name. Almost immediately, my phone rang. Debt collectors. One after another, demanding payment, threatening liens, threatening the house. My hands shook as I listened to the automated messages, realizing the depth of what she'd done. I didn't panic, at least not outwardly. I remembered Callan's advice. Evidence, strategy, calm. I blocked the calls temporarily and sent the banks the documents proving the loan was fraudulent. I knew it wouldn't stop them forever, but it bought us time. My heart raced, but in a different way now. This was no longer about her selfishness or greed. This was about survival. Dad's house, his finances, his health. They were all at risk because of her choices. The line had been crossed. She didn't just drain the fund. She didn't just spend recklessly. She had actively put my father in danger. I felt a cold clarity settle over me. I couldn't go back to pretending this was just family drama. Pretending she would suddenly feel guilty or change. Pretending Dad could forgive her without consequences. The surgery room doors opened, and a nurse peeked out, giving me a small, reassuring nod. Dad was okay for now. But outside the OR, outside the monitors and sterile walls, a storm was waiting for Marin. I leaned back in the chair, phone in hand, taking a deep breath. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was criminal. And I had all the pieces to make sure she couldn't escape it. There was no turning back. This time, I wasn't just fighting for Dad's health. I was fighting for our future. Dad came home from surgery a few days later. He was pale and weak, moving slowly around the house, still groggy from the anesthesia. I helped him settle into the living room, making sure he had water and that his medications were close by. Once he was comfortable, I told him to rest and left him in peace. Then I found Marin in the kitchen, sipping a green smoothie like nothing had happened. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Marin, we need to talk," I said. She looked up, curious, a little smug. "About what?" I pulled the folder from my bag and set it on the table. I opened it slowly, letting the papers slide across the surface. Bank statements, withdrawal records, loan agreements, signature comparisons. Every piece of proof laid bare. Her smile faltered. Her face drained of color. "You're overreacting," she said, her voice defensive. "It's just money. We can fix it later." I leaned in slightly, keeping my tone calm but sharp. "No, it's prison." Her eyes widened. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You've always hated me. This is jealousy. Always has been." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I simply opened the folder wider, letting her see every line, every number, every forged signature. The truth was clear. She couldn't argue with facts. I placed two options in front of her. Listen carefully. 1. You repay every dollar within 30 days. Every single cent. Or 2. I file charges. Fraud, identity theft, the whole thing. She blinked, a nervous twitch at her lips. I waited. My heart beat steadily, not fast, not panicked. I had prepared for this. Then she laughed. That self-satisfied, mocking laugh. "You wouldn't," she said. "You can't." I stayed silent. She chose wrong. I watched as the color left her face even more. Her smile faltered. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to pick up her smoothie, then set it down again. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not the fake fear she used to manipulate Dad or charm anyone else. This was fear of consequences. I left the kitchen calmly, letting her stew in the weight of her choice. Dad was upstairs, resting. He didn't need to see this. He didn't need to know how close we had come to disaster. This confrontation wasn't about yelling or anger. It was about facts, strategy, justice. And for the first time, Marin realized she had crossed a line she couldn't come back from. Marin didn't repay a single dollar. Not one. She acted like my warnings didn't exist, like the folder I had shown her never happened. Instead, she threw herself into her next performance, a grand opening for her healing studio downtown. Bright lights, music, a ribbon stretched across the doorway. She smiled at every guest, shaking hands, posing for photos. Candles flickered on glass tables, new brochures stacked neatly for anyone walking in. It was all so polished, so perfect. I showed up in the crowd, blending in at first. Not to celebrate, not to applaud. I was there to deliver the next step. I waited quietly, letting the room fill with people eager to experience healing through release. Her laughter echoed as she greeted attendees. Every eye on her, every compliment, every handshake. I stayed near the back, folder in my hand, heart steady. I watched the energy, the performance, the way she thrived on attention. Then the moment came. She was mid-sentence, describing a breathing exercise, when I walked forward and laid the legal paperwork on the counter in front of her. Every eye turned. Guests paused, whispers spreading like wildfire. Is that? What's happening? Maren froze. Her perfect smile cracked. She reached for the papers, but her hands trembled. Her confidence faltered for the first time. The charm, the laughter, the I'm untouchable energy, it was gone. I didn't say a word. The papers did all the talking. Fraud investigation initiated. Signature forgery. Bank theft. Identity fraud. All of it documented and ready for the authorities. The crowd shifted awkwardly, unsure whether to leave or stay, while Maren's eyes darted around. She tried to laugh it off, tried to make a joke, but it sounded hollow. Every guest sensed the tension. 2 days later, the police came. They questioned her at the station, going through the loan documents, the statements, the signatures. Maren couldn't charm her way out this time. She couldn't manipulate her way through a legal system built on proof. The grand opening became a public fall. Her carefully constructed image, the luxurious studio, the fancy furniture, the promises of abundance, crumbled under the weight of her own actions. I watched from a distance, calm. Not vindictive, just aware. The line had been crossed, and now the consequences were real. Maren had gambled with more than just money. She had gambled with her reputation, her freedom, and the trust of everyone around her. And for the first time, she realized some games aren't won with charm or smiles, they end in accountability. After Maren's grand opening collapse, the news spread quickly through the family. Extended relatives started calling, some angry, some confused. How could you do that to your own sister? One aunt asked, her voice sharp over the phone. She's your family. Another cousin sent a text. Alara, are you really going to ruin her like this? She's emotionally fragile. I ignored most of the messages. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I let the proof speak for itself. Meanwhile, Maren made sure everyone knew her side of the story. She cried openly in front of anyone who would listen, claiming she was emotionally unstable and that I had taken advantage of her vulnerability. She spun it as if I had orchestrated some grand betrayal out of jealousy or spite. Dad stayed quiet at first. He had been recovering slowly, still weak from surgery, and I could see the worry in his eyes. One evening, I brought the folder of documents into the living room and placed it gently on the coffee table. I sat with him as he looked through the papers, starting with the bank withdrawals, then the loan agreement, and finally the signature comparison. His hands shook as he traced the forged signature with his finger. He swallowed hard and looked up at me. For the first time, he said the words I had been waiting to hear. She did this to me, he whispered, voice trembling. Not to us, not to the family, but to me. I felt a wave of relief. That simple, honest acknowledgement broke something in him. His disbelief, his favoritism, his protective instincts for Maren. And it fixed something in me too. I realized then that it wasn't about being cruel or punishing Maren for the sake of it. It was about making sure Dad was safe. It was about holding someone accountable when they put the person you love most in danger. I sat quietly beside him, letting him process it. I didn't need to explain my actions. I didn't need to justify my decisions. He had seen the truth. He understood now. For the first time, I felt like the weight I had been carrying, the anger, the fear, the sleepless nights, was balanced. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Dad's recognition gave me clarity. I didn't need validation from anyone else. The family could argue, cry, or judge all they wanted. I had done what needed to be done. And for the first time in a long time, I felt steady, confident, ready. Maren didn't go to jail, but that didn't mean she got away. The plea deal came through a few weeks later, and I watched as her world quietly unraveled. She had to repay every single dollar she had stolen. The surgery fund, the personal loan, every last cent. Her business license was revoked immediately. No more healing through release workshops. No more brochures or fancy studio with scented candles. She couldn't claim abundance anymore. She was put on probation, her credit ruined, and any hope of borrowing money in the future gone. The banks flagged her as high risk, and landlords wouldn't touch her applications. The lifestyle she had built on my father's name disappeared almost overnight. Maren had no choice but to get a real job. She started at a retail store downtown, folding clothes and ringing up customers. She moved out of the house, carrying her boxes quietly, pretending like she had control, but everyone who saw her knew it wasn't the same. The house that had sheltered her for years was now gone from her life. For the first time, I wasn't cleaning up after her. I wasn't covering her mistakes or making excuses for her behavior. I wasn't staying up late to fix something she had broken. Every bill, every debt, every problem she faced now belonged to her. Dad looked better, calmer, more at peace. He finally trusted me with the household finances. The emergency accounts, the bills, the savings, all under my control. I felt a strange sense of relief. I didn't feel victorious, not exactly. It wasn't revenge. It was order restored. Maren, meanwhile, was living in the consequences she had created. No more manipulation, no more charm to get her way. Every late notice, every probation check-in, every awkward interaction at work reminded her that her choices had consequences. I saw her sometimes at the grocery store or around town, and I felt nothing like hatred. Just awareness. She had crossed the line, and now life had set her straight. And for me, finally, there was space to breathe. I wasn't responsible for someone else's recklessness anymore. I could focus on Dad, on my job, and on rebuilding a sense of safety that Maren had almost destroyed. I realized that sometimes the hardest lessons are learned not through punishment alone, but through the slow, inevitable collapse of the life someone built on lies. Maren was learning hers. I was free to live mine. Months later, life had settled into a different rhythm. Dad was recovering well from his surgery. He still had his weak days, but the color had returned to his cheeks, and he moved around the house with a little more energy. I watched him carefully, making sure he took his medications, rested, and didn't overdo it. I, too, had returned to my normal life. Back at the ER, the chaos of trauma rooms and emergency calls no longer felt overwhelming. Somehow, I was different now. Stronger. More certain. I moved through the hallways with purpose, my decisions sharper, my focus clear. The long shifts, the constant adrenaline, they no longer drained me. They reminded me that I could handle anything. Then one quiet afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from Maren. Ilara, I need help. Please. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the reply button. My first instinct wasn't anger, or hatred, or even satisfaction. It was clarity. I realized something vital. I didn't need to fix her anymore. I didn't need to rescue her, protect her, or cover for her mistakes. I had done that my entire life, and it had never earned me the respect or care I deserved. I understood something I hadn't fully seen before. I was never the weak one. I had been the backbone, the person holding everything together while everyone else leaned on me. When the backbone is strong, the body moves, survives, thrives. But if the backbone steps away, the body collapses. Maren's message was just noise now. Her chaos, her desperation, her regrets, they were hers to live with. I didn't need to carry them for her. I locked my phone. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I was done. Done with the weight of someone else's selfishness. Done with fixing what should have never been broken in the first place. Done with allowing her actions to shape my life or my emotions. I turned and walked back into the trauma bay. The emergency lights reflected off the shiny floors, the beeping monitors and hurried footsteps welcoming me back. It felt familiar, grounding. The patience, the challenges, the moments of life and death, they reminded me of who I was. Who I had always been. I wasn't hardened. I wasn't bitter. I was steady, clear, strong. I was done being everything to everyone else. Now I was just Ilara, and that was enough. This story shows the importance of financial awareness, documenting transactions, and protecting loved ones from fraud. Always monitor shared accounts, understand legal rights, and act calmly but decisively when trust is broken. Stay informed, plan ahead, and empower yourself to safeguard family and personal finances from misuse.